Hi, my name is Noel. I'm the founder of LearnFastLife, and I'd like to take this video to show how LearnFastLife works from the standpoint of a teacher or educator. So to do that, what I'd like to do is, first of all, not go to the 4 teachers, but I'm going to jump in as if you were teaching a class yourself. The first thing to know is that the core idea of LearnFastLife is to assist teachers in, for example, creating homework and course content. So to create homework, what we do is that, say, for example, you are teaching a class in real life. Now you would teach the class, and when you would take your smartphone and using the recorder app on your smartphone, you would just put the smartphone down between you and the class and simply press record and record the lesson. Now, of course, it's important to get the agreement from the people in the class, and if they're younger than their parents, that they're okay with you recording the lesson. Something to bear in mind here before we go further is, firstly, that the recording is completely anonymous, so it doesn't save anybody's names. And secondly, it's not stored anywhere. The audio is uploaded, it's used to create the homework, and then it's deleted immediately. So it's anonymous and it's not stored. So just to move on, so you would give the class and record the class with the recorder app of your smartphone. At the end of the class, you stop the recording and you upload it into our system using our handy little mobile phone app, which takes simply 1 click, and that goes up into our system. What happens is that the system transcribes the audio, and what's very special about that is it's not a general standard transcription service. We use the absolute top of the line transcription service, which means that the lesson is perfectly transcribed, even if you switch, for example, back and forth between English and German. So the transcription will pick up when you're speaking German and pick up when you're speaking English and faithfully reproduce that. From the audio, then we have the transcription. And what the system then does is it takes the transcription and creates an intelligent summary of the class. And it creates a list of words that came up in the class with their translations. And it creates a list of the grammar points that came up in the class. Now, when I say came up in the class, it's important to know that it's not a thing where you have to somehow point out to the AI, because it is based around AI. So it's not that you have to point out specifically that there are certain words for it to remember, or you don't have to point out that there are specific grammar topics that you were discussing. The AI simply picks that up from the audio. So you don't have to do anything. You simply click the button to record your class, click it again at the end to send it into the system, and other than that, you do not have to worry about it at all. And now I'll show you what you get from that. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take one of the classes that I teach, which is actually a company that I go to and teach. So here we have a classic article that AI has created for me. Now, as you can see, we were talking about present continuous versus present simple for future events and active and passive voice. So what we do is this is created. So the first thing that happens is the lesson is summarized into this like handy little visual infographic, which for visual learners is really useful. So it's future tenses, present continuous, the sharp rule, must versus have to, and active versus passive. Now, as we scroll down, you can see that we've created the article both in German and in English. But let's stick with the English version. So here's firstly the intelligent summary. So it gives us a quick intelligent summary of what we discussed in the class, with a couple of things that came up, like with sharp, depart and emphasize, and so on and so on. The next thing that happens, I'm going to come back to this in a moment, is that we get vocabulary. As you can see, like I said, these are simply words that came up that the AI figured out that we need to pay attention to. So, for example, English and German. Obviously, as we expand, we're going to have other languages, but at the moment we're doing between English and German. And so you get the word list, and down here, then you can see the grammar points that happen to come up through the lesson. Present continuous for future, with a short description, and present simple for future, active versus passive voice, must versus have to. So these are simply picked out by the AI from the class, and then there's a short explanation. What's going to happen later that I still need to do is there's going to be, for example, this is going to be automatically linked to a specific explanation of this tense, for example. So there's going to be automatic linking that's coming later around here. So that'll link to present continuous, this will link to present simple, and so on and so on. Meanwhile, as we go down here, what I find very interesting is that then the second thing that the system does is from the transcript and from the summary, it combines that to make an interactive quiz. Now I'm going to open that over here in a new window, and you can see that this quiz is absolutely 100% based. And also, so the homework that we have in this article is 100% based exactly on the lesson that you just gave. And this quiz is 100% based on the lesson you just gave as well. So the student would then enter their name, say his name's Bob, and then this is the soft quiz version. So they put in the answer, and then they get an immediate feedback on whether it's right or not and why it's right or not. As you can see, that's incorrect, but it's still with the same same explanation. And we can go down and we do that for all of them like this. Just going to shoot down and pretend that I've done all of that. And at the end, first I'm going to check my score, which shoots us back up to see the score. And then we can submit the quiz results. Now, once I submit the quiz results, these are sent to a central point in our AI system, which then takes the quiz results and tracks the student's progress, analyzes the student's progress, picks out where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then can give you, the teacher, information on that, and can even, if we decide on that, so every situation we do it specifically for what the individual teacher or the individual school wants. So that can then also be, not only the progress can be tracked and analyzed and shown to the teacher, but we can also either manually or automatically then send that individual student extra content to address their particular weaknesses to get them up to speed. Now, as you know, if you're teaching a class, you do your best to cover everyone as much as you can, but it's simply impossible to completely address the needs and the strengths and weaknesses of each individual student. As a teacher myself, I know that you just have to do your best with covering everyone, and then give people extra help as and when you can. Now, this takes care of that so that every single student in the class gets laser-focused extra help with their particular weaknesses. So after I've shown you that, I'm just going to pop back here. So I want to show you the other thing that we have happen, and that is over here we have the lesson is the summary of the lesson is fed into something that creates then a podcast. Now, this audio podcast, again, is a conversation between two people created by AI. So it's automatically created as easily as we create the article and the quiz and everything else. And the podcast is automatically created here so that the student can then listen to that just to deepen their understanding and to revisit the lesson really easily while their adult student may be driving to work, or a younger student may be on their bicycle or hanging out or whatever. So I'll just give you a very, very quick display of that. And what I'd also like to point out is that what we do is this podcast is set into a podcast series that is available on Spotify and will soon be available on other podcast apps as well. So wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple or YouTube or Amazon or wherever, you will be able to access this as well. And I just wanted to point out as well that I've set it up so that the podcast is in German, so it's less for advanced students and more for between beginner and medium level students, so that the podcast is in German, but explaining aspects of English grammar.
In Verpflichtung drücken. Und zwar ohne auch nur ein einziges Wort der Entschuldigung formulieren zu müssen.
Oh, das klingt nach einem Traum für viele, ja?
Absolut. Du erfindest keine Ausreden, du lügst nicht, du änderst einfach nur eine winzige, scheinbar völlig...
So as you can see, there's a very quick taste, but as you can see, it's a really nice way of kind of like deepening your understanding of the lesson or refreshing the lesson content by just listening to a podcast, like literally two people discussing that. So let's go back here. So that's the central core of it. What also happens, which is really nice, is that we have a flashcard setup. Well, the flashcard setup, I'm just going to close my Spotify there. What the flashcard setup does here is, now as you can see, because we have two different kinds of users, we have the students for students, we have the students who are enrolled in classes, which is what would be relevant for you. We also have independent learners that turn up by themselves and use the app. Now, this is for them, generally speaking, but we're going to concentrate on here, for example. And so if I write in for this section here is for students that belong to a class. So for example, we're sticking with Rex Roth as the name of the class. Say that was the one that we just did. As you can see, it's Rex Roth. So the student would just have to put in the name of their class here, and then they would get either 20 words, if there are that many, from the latest lesson, or a random 20 words taken from all of the lessons up until now. So let's just do that, and here we go. So as you can see, now we have a flashcard deck with all the words, as I say, from either from that last lesson that we just looked at, or a random bunch of 20 words taken from all the lessons. And then they can go through this. Everything, obviously, that they hit again, they will be able to go over that again. I'm just going to do this quickly, and I'll probably let you fast forward and catch up with me at the end. Okay, so now we've got to the end. We've done all the 20 cards with the 20 words. As I say again, this was words from randomly taken from all of our lessons. We could have just taken the words from that specific lesson that we just did over here, but this particular one is all the random words from all the lessons. As you can see, we've got 28%. You can see that we had 1 easy, 4 good, 6 were hard, and 9 again. Now, the again ones are these failed cards that you want to review. Now, if you want to, which you probably do as a student, you can save this deck. And once you save that deck, it will then be saved on your flashcard deck page. And this is all saved for the particular student who is logged in. So the student who is logged in will have saved that flashcard deck to his or her flashcard deck page, and they will then see it every time they open the flashcard deck page in the future. Obviously, we could review the failed cards. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back to home. And as you can see now at the bottom here, we have our saved flashcard deck, which we can then study whenever we like and run through it again. All of the flashcard decks that you saved will appear here at the bottom. Now, just to have a really quick look at this other little section here, this is obviously for all our classes and our homework, but here the student can also put in anything here, like they can paste in some text, or paste in their lesson, or paste in anything they like, or can choose by topic, like phrasal verbs, present perfect, negotiation, vocabulary, anything they like, and then create their own flashcard set which they can then also go through, and which they can also review the failed cards of, and which will then also be saved down here. So that's the flashcards deck. Now, I have a couple of things with chatbot set up here. You'll notice that the website has a couple of different chatbot possibilities. So here we can, for example, practice. We have Archer, who will, once I start the call, we can practice with Archer. Now, he's an audio chatbot, very intelligent and likable kind of person, and you can just have a conversation with him. You can ask him to go through certain aspects of grammar, or you can ask him about aspects of the site. Pretty much anything you can chat away with Archer. I'll just give you a little quick taste of Archer.
Hi, nice of you to drop by. What can I do for you?
Hey,
we can chat about anything you want. Or if you'd like to go through some grammar, practice tenses, anything like that, we can do that too.
Hi Archer, actually I was just wanting to introduce you to the teachers that will be watching this to see what they can do with the site. What do you think of that?
That's a fantastic idea. It's always great to have new people see what we're doing here. I'm sure the teachers will find our approach to language learning quite interesting, especially with how we integrate AI to make the learning process more efficient and personalized.
There you go. Thanks very much, Archer. And so I'm going to close him up. That's just a quick little taste of Archer. What we also have is, again, this is more for business people, because a lot of business people in Western Europe end up working together with people in India. Obviously, there's a lot of IT teams in India and so on. And, Indian people tend to speak extremely good English. They have a very particular accent, which is very difficult for especially for learners of English to understand. So I'm just going to give you a little quick taste of our dialect chatbot. This is the first one we have, but we can expand into chatbots with other dialects to practice with, from Australian to Welsh to Irish to Scottish to all the slightly more challenging dialects. So let's just have a little quick taste of Agarwal.
Hi, so you want to improve your understanding of the Indian accent? Let's chat.
Hi Agarwal, how are you doing? How's the weather in India?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. I'm an AI, so I don't actually experience weather or live in a specific location. However, I can tell you that India is a vast country with diverse climates. Depending on the region, it could be anything from hot and humid to pleasant and mild right now. What about you? How are things where you are?
Just out of interest, are there any aspects of the way Indian people speak English that would help me to know if I was going to go there?
That's a great question. Yes, there are a few common characteristics you might notice in the way Indian people speak English. One is often a distinct rhythm and intonation, which can sometimes sound a bit more melodic or sing songy compared to other English accents.
Thanks, and I'll talk to you later, okay?
Yep.
So as you can see, that was just a little brief taste of speaking to Agarwal, our first dialect chatbot, to help to understand and to pronounce the Indian accent when speaking English. So we have, as I said, we have Archer and we have Agarwal. We also have Ben, and Ben is your dedicated AI conversation partner. Now, what this is that every single class has their own dedicated AI chatbot. What that means is you can do everything with Ben that you can do with Archer. For example, you can practice conversation, you can ask about grammar topics, anything like that. But what's really nice with this is that this chatbot is trained on all of your lessons, also on the most recent lesson. And that means that for the people who maybe missed something in class, or who didn't understand something, or couldn't make it to the class, for example. Actually, I have this as Archer as well. I was going to change it to Ben. Then you would talk to this chatbot, whatever his name is, and ask anything about grammar, have practice a conversation, but also ask about what, for example, we were doing. Now, let's just
Hi,
try
Toby.
that.
It's Archer here. What can I do for you? Shall we practice some English?
Hi, Archer. I was actually, I missed the lesson last week, and I was wondering, could you just fill me in on what we did in our previous lesson, in our most recent lesson?
Of course, I can help you with that. In our last lesson, we covered, of course. I can definitely fill you in on what we covered in our last English lesson. We had a great session that flowed like a natural conversation between Noel, the teacher, and Toby, the student, which is you. The lesson primarily focused on 3 key areas: conversational practice, structured grammar instruction, and applied practice. In the conversational part, you described your work.
So as you can see, so every single class will have their own dedicated chatbot, so that any student in the class can then talk to the chatbot anytime they like, practice grammar, have a practice conversation, but also ask specific questions about things that came up in the lesson. Now that means they can also say, okay, in the lesson there was, for example, between must and have to, I didn't completely understand it. Could you just kind of go through that with me? And then Archer, or Ben in the future, I hope, will be able to go through that with you, be able to explain it to you, the student, and even give you some practice questions, anything like that. So I find that quite a nice aspect. Now, again, there's other things as I wanted to show you for the teachers, but obviously for the teacher, it is quite relevant what the students will be getting out of it. So you can see that, for example, the students themselves have a Learn Hub. They have an explanation of how to use this. They have their own student dashboard. They have, especially for someone just starting to learn, there's a language learner level test. Then there's also flashcards and so on, and they have their own class hub as well. So for example, this is the Learn Hub. So if I think this is me as a student. Oh, no, this is me, I'm logged out. So if I'm logged in, then as a student, then I would have handy little things here. And when I scroll down here, I would be able to track my progress. Now, obviously, I'm going to turn this off for a second, and then I'm going to go and log in, and then I'll come back and show you what the logged in student who belongs to a class will be able to see right here. Meanwhile, as you can see, here is the test for what language learner level they are. The AI will let the student know what language level they think they're on. There's also grammar explanations that the student can do at any time. So here we have grammar explanations. As I said, we're starting with English. So with English, we've got all the main basic grammar topics that people need to learn. It's not done for specific levels, these. I just put in an explanation for each of the things. Apart from the tenses, so for every tense, then we have a foundation course. we have an intermediate, and we have an advanced. Now again, every single one of these comes with its little quiz at the end, which again you can check your score, and which again you can then submit the quiz that will get sent into our system so we can check on that and then track the progress. We also have news articles. The idea here is that every week we will be posting news articles, so it's topical things, it's current affairs, so anyone who's interested in reading things in English adapted to their level, here C1 or B1, B2 or A2, B1. So it's content that the students can read, adapted exactly to their level with a quiz at the end on topical current affairs. And just going to show you what you get with your teacher. So for your teacher hub, now this is the universal teacher hub, so that we have a teacher dashboard and a teacher hub. This is the universal teacher hub where you can log in and you can go to different levels and find some kind of grammar content. So some people will want to upload the audio from the app, but in case someone wants to upload the audio from the computer, then that's where you can do this. It does exactly the same thing. And if you, for example, have some aspect of a lesson which is text, you can also upload something with text. So if you have, for example, a PDF or something which is some written content that you would like to share with the class and you would like to test them on it, for example, if you give them all a printout and they read through it, then you could put that printout into the system, and again that would do exactly the same thing, where you would just put it here and you could then have an explainer, a summary, a quiz, flashcards and so on based on that too. That's the teacher hub. I just quickly logged myself in as a teacher. There's actually a practice teacher user that I've set up called Chi Honeysuckle. And so if you are a teacher, then you have your, as well as the universal teacher hub, you also have your own teacher dashboard. Now when you go out as a teacher, you will just go on here. There will be the list of your different classes, the number of your students, who was active in the last 7 days, who needs attention, and who is below 50%, for example. Now, this is obviously something that we're still working on, but this is the basic version at the moment. So as you can see, Chi is teaching the Rexroth class where there are 12 students, and they can see this is the names of the students, where their email addresses, how many quizzes they've done, their average score, how many sessions they've done in the last 14 days, when they were last active, and their status. For example, Andrea is on track. Daniel is under 2 sessions in 14 days, and so on. Inactive, Kirsten was inactive in the last 10 days, and so on and so on. Noel is on track. That's bully for me. So this is kind of an MVP, so a minimum viable product kind of setup, so you can just see what the possibilities are. If for example, if you as a teacher have 5 different classes in here, you see there are 5 classes, you'll have your listing of your students. You can see immediately who's been active, who needs attention, who's getting below 50% in the quizzes, for example. And then you'll be able to go, will be a little table here for each class. At the moment, obviously, we only have one, but there'll be a table here for each class where you can just, as a teacher, really have a really quick look over it and see where everyone is at, kind of thing. Now, of course, we can also do things like we can have it set up so that the teacher will receive an email when they need certain alerts, like, for example, I don't know, it's the day before the homework is meant to be handed in and only 2 people have handed it in. We could set it up so that you, the teacher, would then get an email alert about that. Or if one student was getting consistently below 40% in all the tests, for example, you could get an alert for that. So it's kind of really quite flexible, and we're happy to work with individual teachers and individual classes and individual schools to fine-tune this and make it perfect for everyone as much as possible. And here is this is more for independent teachers. We have here certification, so that every teacher can then get certified for the system. So you can get certified as being able to teach using the LearnFastLife system. Now, for teachers who are in high schools, that may not be so relevant, I'm not sure. But for example, for freelance English trainers, which is what I was doing, that would end up being quite useful, so that you can put that on your resume. And we like to imagine a world where language schools would then specifically look for teachers who can teach using the system.